7 p.m. Chicago time. So,
you know.
1
p.m.
Yes, 1 p.m.
England
Yeah,
time.
1 a.m.
1 a.m. rather.
In the
and,
UK, so
yeah,
not exactly.
No, I can't do it in normal time.
Yeah, it's too bad. There's 24 different times all at once. You know, it'd be nice if there was just everybody.
I listen on YouTube, and I really enjoy them, and I get such a lot out of it.
Well, yeah, but it has been so good for me. Hi, Gary. Gary's here, so that's official. Start. We can start with. Hi, Gary.
Hey, yeah, let's start.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's no, I just cheat a little bit because that gives a little more time at the end. You know, I wanted to show this the one thing here. This is the we don't ever want to get away from the fact that this is happening in real time. You know, and you could see, or maybe not on this page, but he crosses out a lot of words, but I mean, he's writing this as we go. And it's very important in this one, I think, to remember that we just had this very powerful vision of where, he becomes, the snake coils around him, squeezes him till his blood runs out, and then he extends his arms as if he's the Christ, and it is the Christ, not Christ. It's the it's the archetype of the self, really, has constellated in him, and since it constellated in him, hi Jan, since the archetype of the self, Christ, has constellated in him, he can now, or Salome now is not subjugated by logos anymore, or the eros side, or the feeling side of Jung is not under the complete control of Elijah anymore. I mean, Salome has now been liberated from Elijah, so she can see. Okay, but anyway, we got to keep that in mind, because that was very powerful, and it was very cathartic, and I think it feeds into this sort of insistence on Christianity that we're going to hear in here. But I just wanted to show these lines here that he quotes from Dante, and the one that really is interesting to me is, I am the one who, when love breathes on me, notices. I am the one who, when love breathes on me, notices. And in the manner she dictates, she dictates within. I said she, but he writes, Dante said he, I utter words. So this really describes this principle, which Dante experienced, that was very similar to Jung's. And, Jung did this at age 38, and Dante was 35. At 35, I entered a perilous wood where the straight road ended and it became the winding road. And even though Dante's visions are not quite as free and wonderful, and he applies them to a Christian archetype, what they're really describing is the 7 levels of alchemy, or the 7 levels of the chakras, the 7 levels of the archons in astronomy, the planets, and so it's really more of an analogy with that than it is with Christianity. But anyway, it's just interesting to see him write this, and you know, this is written, you can see smudged here, and it's just something that we got to keep in mind when we're reading this, is that it's actually happens at the right same time. That was the powerful one. I am the one who, when love breathes on me, notices, and in the manner that she dictates within, I utter words. Okay. Now that describes active imagination, you know. Um, and and then he goes on, in the same, this is Dante again, in the same manner as a flame which follows whatever shape it takes, the new form follows the spirit exactly. So that's a little harder to understand, but in the same manner as a flame, flickering flame, which follows whatever shape it takes, the new form follows the spirit exactly, or the inner voice. Let's put it that way. So anyway, then one of the most instructive parts of these things are not these, what becomes sort of a mystery play. What is the most interesting, I think, at least for us, is for him to describe his difficulty at the beginning, you know. And he says, the night begins with a feeling of ignorance and incapacity. Only expectancy is on the lookout, as if from a high tower that dominates the country. And he says, I am standing on a high tower. And I'll just show you, he's actually made a drawing of this. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, there it is. Okay. All right. Okay. He says, I am standing on a high tower. The horizon stretches far. A gray and cloudy sky covers the earth. I am utter anticipation. Okay, now this really describes gazing into the darkness and trying to animate it, is this utter anticipation. And remember that he said that hope and the images come from the same source. So the anticipation and the images come from the same source. So, and it's a strange type of anticipation, because it can't include the willful ego. It's an anticipation that where the willful directed thinking is gone, you know. And it's really a vacuum. And you know, I've tried to think about it as that way, is that we need to create a vacuum, and once we've created the vacuum, it will fill, you know. So it in the furthest end of the country, I discover a red spot, and it comes nearer on a winding road. This is just wonderful drama. It comes nearer on a winding road, disappearing for a while in the forest and then reappearing again. There's a horseman in a red coat, a red horseman. Is it the Red Knight? Well, you know who the Red Knight was, is actually was one of the main opponents of King Arthur, you know, and this is an image of Percival. This is, and if you see this, where it is, where this painting is, you know, it's a kind of a little chapel to the Grail engine. But anyway, as a lout dressed as a clown, the Red Knight had just went into Arthur's court and had you know, taken the goblet of Arthur's wife and hi Adam, and splashed her with it, you know. And then he rode off with the, anyone who wants to avenge this can meet me outside, he says. And so then he rides out with the goblet, and actually Percival had seen this happen, because he'd went into the court, you know, and he was dressed so comically that there was a woman there who had never laughed before She would only laugh when she saw the greatest knight in the world. And so he walks in with this clown costume and she laughs. And somebody there, Sir Kay, is offended that he's not the greatest knight in the world. And so he throws a glass of wine on her too. But anyway, so nobody gets up. Percival, and by the way, this story's when it's told by Wolfram von Eschenbach, he changes the name Parzival to Percival, which means to pierce through the middle. You know, it's the middle way of the Buddha. You know, it is this Percival, go through the middle. And he throws a javelin and kills the Red Knight, and then he is then the Red Knight himself after that. And anyway, that's the Red Knight. But it's a horseman in a red coat. A red horseman. Is it the Red Knight? Well, what does the red mean? We'll find out in a little bit. He's wearing green. You know, I'm in a castle on a steep rock, a medieval atmosphere. It seems to me I'm wearing a green garment. A mighty horn hangs from my shoulder. The red horseman approaches the castle. Should I blow on the horn? Hesitation holds me, but I do it. You know, and it's like the horn of Siegfried, you know, is like that. And it's very loud horn. And a resounding blow on the horn. And below, many people rush out from the doors and they open the gate. Now, he's just talking about his role as the one on the watchtower. He doesn't think that the red horseman's coming to see him necessarily, you know. And the red one rides in and jumps off the horse. And I look down steadfastly. I love that word. I mean, you know, without it, he's very dutiful, and something uncanny seems to accompany him. And so he withdraws to the tower's chambers and must watch the door. So he's sitting there saying, is he going to, what if the red one came to me, a guest of the castle maybe, but why should he climb up to see me? You know, but sure enough, he hears the stairs, foot on the stairs, and the boards are creaking, and then a knock at the door, and a strange fear comes over him, and he shivers and opens the door, and there stands the red one. The red spot has come, and it's a long shape, wholly shrouded in red. Even his hair is red. Okay, well, Young is green. Okay, and you know that, and later we'll find out why he's not just green by accident. You know, he is he's anticipating the green man. You know, is he kind of represents nature. And now remember, this is from the, and like every dream, you know, you got three parts to the dream, and the second part has nothing to do with the first part, apparently, but it does. You know, it's from that. So the second part of the dream is the follow up to the first part of the dream. So this vision on December 26, 1913, the night after the one from December 25th, is the answer to his curing Salome and experiencing the suffering of a ritual death, you know, through assimilating the passion of Christ. Okay, so the answer here is now he's in a medieval atmosphere. He's wearing a green suit. He's seems to be, you know, he's a thinking type, so his inferior function is sensation, which is green, you know, and or no, his inferior function is red, which is the feeling type, and that represents somewhat the red knight. And green is the inferior function of his secondary function, which is intuition, which is sensation, and is green. So his two most unconscious functions are at work here, and the other is the red one, and he represents feeling. Well, Jung, though, is not. He's going to give him another description. He says, "Oh yes," he says right here. He says, um, "The long shape, wholly shrouded in red. Even his hair is red." And I think in the end, he will turn out to be the devil. Okay. Well, what's the devil? Who is the devil? Everybody talks about the devil, but who is the devil? I mean, the missing part of the Trinity, is not just the early underground deities were called the Kabiri, you know, and they also represented the land of the dead, but there was nothing evil about it. There was nothing inherently evil about it until Christianity came along, and then suddenly evil enters the world because it was the most spiritual religion, and there was actually a ontological purpose in that extreme spirituality, and that was to separate us from the bulls and the rams, from Aries and Taurus, to totally separate from and become vertical, So what happens is in the first 1,000 years of the vertical fish of Pisces, there is this very spiritual aspect of Christianity, which totally rejects the body and the feminine. Okay, so it's and that what used to be Pan and Dionysus, is now the devil. It's the son of the Great Mother, and what does the devil look like? He's the son of the Great Mother. He's got goat feet and horns, so he's represents Pan. Now his red color represents the passions of emotion, where spiritual is very cool, So he not only has to represent the animal side of us with his goat feet and his red horns, and his red color represents emotions that are not under the control of consciousness. Okay, so it's all the unconscious aspects, the emotions that aren't under the control, and the animal side of ourselves, and the maternal, the feminine. And so we went into a very patriarchal atmosphere where you have the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, who, when the Holy Ghost, this is something I learned from, I think from Edinger, is when the Holy Ghost is unconscious, it's feminine, but when it becomes more conscious, it becomes masculine because it enters logos. When it's eros, and it just brings together, the Holy Spirit is somewhat like Hermes. It's this connector from the two worlds, from the incarnate Son and this very removed Father. So that was the first 1,000 years of the devil. And then we hear that in the second 1,000 years, there's going to be the age of the Antichrist. Okay. Now, this is the horizontal fish of Pisces, the second half of Pisces. And this is supposed to come around, say 1,000 AD or so, okay. But what it represents, it's a totally different devil. Hi, Tim. it really has removed itself from nature too, and now it represents the archetype of the ego. And when it's called antichrist, what it really means is it has it is just totally willful and not subservient at all to the depths. It's complete ego. And so in the second half of Pisces, the devil represents the personification of the willful ego, which does not recognize its source and is only doing ego things and doesn't realize that there is it's not the master in its own house, you know. And this is the horizontal age that is, 10 miles wide and 2 inches deep, but it also represents the age of discovery. This was when in Europe anyway, you suddenly have Columbus and Magellan and Francis Drake, going all over the world and discovering its round and discovering all the Spice Islands and America, the New World, and so it represents an expansion of consciousness, but at the expense of the vertical world, of the connection with the upper and the lower. I don't know how much connection there was with the lower, but anyway, that's is the aspect of a new figure in European consciousness of this devil who is the fallen angel, Lucifer, the light bearer. Okay, so he's the light bearer. So he's somewhat, as the light bearer, he represents the willful ego, willful consciousness, the light of consciousness, but the one that's not subservient anymore to the center, So it possesses light, but it uses the light for its own purposes. And that's why Lucifer, the light bearer, represents the personification of the ego archetype. This is from Edinger. Anyway, it's not from me. But anyway, he thinks that the red one is the devil. Okay. Well, we don't really. I don't think we're at the end, we're going to find out that he has a different conception of himself. He's not really the devil. But then later, but he hides his vestiges, he doesn't really let on who he is or what he is. It's mysterious. And for Jung, he represents a male aspect of the unconscious function of Jung, which is feeling because of his red color, So anyway, he says that he thinks he's going to be the devil. And this red one, as he's entering this room, says, "I greet you, man on the high tower. I saw you from afar, watching and waiting. Your waiting has called me." That was, so this red one, this feeling function, somehow Jung's consciousness is waiting for it to arrive, so it has come because Jung's consciousness in his dominant function, the one that stands on the watchtower, the one that consciousness uses, that the ego uses, that's sitting there watching, knows that it needs something and some unknown thing, and what it needs is something red, And he says, and Jung says to him, "Who are you?" And the red one answers, "Who am I? Well, you think I'm the devil. But don't pass judgments. Perhaps you can also just talk to me without knowing who I am. What sort of superstitious fellow are you that immediately you think of the devil?" Well, the devil really is our ego consciousness who's not in relationship with the depths, with the red one, So why not just can't we just talk? You know, I mean, the feeling function represents this as representing the open door to the depths, is also represents an aspect that can annihilate ego, you know, and so it seems evil to ego consciousness, but it's anyway. This is it speaking. It's uttering words, you know, and it says. Perhaps you can just talk to me without knowing who I am. Uh, you know, your attitude towards me is going to define who I am. You know, what sort of superstitious fellow are you that immediately you think of the devil? And then Jung says, well, if you have no supernatural ability, and the unconscious certainly has supernatural ability, how could you feel that I stood waiting on my tower, looking out for the unknown and the new? Well, what is unknown and the new to ego consciousness? It's the unconscious, the depths, the images of the realm of images. Our life in the castle is poor, especially my life, since I always sit here and no one ever climbs up to me. And the red one says, so what are you waiting for? I wait all kinds of things, and especially I'm waiting for some of the world's wealth, which we don't see here, to come to me. Okay, some of the world's wealth. Well, the wealth, any kind of riches, are really an analog to the philosopher's stone, to the treasure hard to attain, to this to Om Mane Padme Hum, you know, the jewel that is in the lotus, you know, the mystery that we seek is in the world that we live in, but men do not see it because it's their eyes are not looking for it. Jung seems to be looking for it. So then the red one says, so I've come to absolutely the right place. I have wandered a long time through the world, seeking those like you who sit up on a high tower and look out for things unseen. Okay, well, that's this. He's talking about someone doing active imagination. Okay, someone who is sitting there expectantly, waiting for something, staring at the darkness. And this is really what we, you know, at least part of our active imagination should be, at least in the when we're creating the vacuum, is just to, like James Joyce said, shut your eyes and see. You know, you just want to shut your eyes, look at the darkness, concentrate on the darkness, and if you do it long enough, something is going to be animated in it. You know, but it takes a lot of practice to become a Yehudi Menuhin. You know, the Jung, I think, has an advantage over us because of his the price works and the fact that he's been with, you know, worked with his cousin Elaine Price Work, who was a medium, and his mother and all of his aunts were very acquainted with this other realm, you know, but they were acquainted with it in somewhat of a shamanic way, not in an alchemical way of transformation. They were just shamans are just conduits, often, not all the time, but they are just conduits that for the messages to come through because they're permeable. But that I think is why Jung, I mean, he started doing this on November 12th, and already on November 25th, or I mean December 25th, he has the vision with Salome and Elijah, and now he's having this other mystery play, which is the answer to the first one. We got to keep that in mind. Okay, and so Jung says to him, he's been looking for people who like to stare in the depths, looking for the new and the unknown. You know, I mean, that's what brought him here. You know, and somewhat apparently related to the feeling function, his inferior function. And Jung says, "Well, you make me curious. You seem to be a rare breed. Even your appearance is not ordinary. And then, to forgive me, it seems to me that you bring with you a strange atmosphere, something worldly, impudent, or exuberant, or if I shall name it clearly, something pagan." Well, you know, he's the red one, you know, so he represents Eros and is close to the feeling function. And it's very pagan, you know, there's nothing spiritual about it. It's related to the earth and to the see it's kind of like, it seems almost like you know, Jung's wearing green, so he's representing nature and the sensation function. And here comes, so this is really a conversation between sensation and the feeling function, both of Jung's unconscious functions, you know. And where's thinking and intuition? Well, he is bringing some intuition in here. He knows, and the stranger laughs complacently and says, "You don't offend me. On the contrary, you hit your nail on the head. But I'm no old pagan, as you seem to think." Okay. Well, what does pagan mean? It means the peasant religion, you know, is what pagan is, the word for peasant. And it just means the native religion, you know. So the native religion of Tibet would be the bone religion, you know, and Buddhism was the established religion, you know. But in where there's a dominant religion, you know, that's not of the personal kind, you know. This is going to be interesting too when we talk about the Christianity, because it's not the personal kind, but I think it has to do with the vision before. It says, well, Jung says, well, I don't want to insist on that. You're also not pompous and Latin enough. You have nothing classical about you. You seem to be a son of our time, but as I must remark, a rather unusual one. You're no real pagan, but the kind of pagan who runs alongside our Christian religion. You know, he's kind of the feeling function. And you know, Jung says too, our functions are always about 300 or 400 years behind ego consciousness. So especially when they're unconscious functions, they're going to express some a little more archaic realm. And yeah, and then the red one says, well, you're truly a good diviner of riddles. You're also better than many others who've totally mistaken me. And then Jung says, you sound cool and sneering. Have you never broken your heart over the holy mysteries of our Christian religion? Well, this is, who's talking here? It certainly doesn't sound like Jung, you know. I mean, he's been the cool and sneering one, you know. So suddenly, after he's been kind of converted to through the experience with Salome, he's got a little deeper respect for the sort of, let's say, the Gnostic aspect of Christianity, you know, because he's experienced it so one-on-one, what its mystery is. And then the red one says, you're an unbelievably ponderous and serious person. Are you always so insistent? And Jung says, I would, before God, always like to be as serious and true to myself as I also try to be now. Now, this is also is where Jung is trying to engage the other side. You know, in other words, the one thing that Jung says as the difference between active imagination and just a vision or a dream is that we're really not engaging with it. I mean, to really engage with it is really to get it triggered, you know. And I was just reading where they asked some little boy, um, do the, you know, the somewhat little boy was asked if the dreams appear in his head. He says, "No, I am in the dream. They don't appear in my head." You know, and I think this is a key to active imagination too. Is you got to get out of your head and you got to go over here and be part of the action over here. You know, so in other words, it's almost a slight out of body experience. This the real active imagination is, and it's very similar to a shaman journey. You know, in a shaman journey, the shaman leaves his body completely, and actually there's some crisis sometimes when he doesn't return, because what's going to happen to this poor body if the um, his soul doesn't return to his body, you know. So there's that, you know. And he says, but he's being serious and true to himself as he tries to be now. However, that certainly is difficult in your presence. You bring a certain gallows air with you. It's interesting. What would be the air uh, at the gallows as someone's about to be hung? You know, I mean, it's certainly. I can think of. I know people who've been hung, you know, recently, not personally, but, you know, I mean, it's sort of a riveting thought. You're bound to be from the Black School of Salerno, where pernicious arts are taught by pagans and the descendants of pagans. Well, that's the alchemical school, the School of Salerno. It's interesting in here how the alchemy is already coming up, where Jung hasn't really um, uh, studied alchemy or really knows what it is, but a lot of these images are very alchemical. And you know, he had the dream where he's trapped in the 16th century when the door closes behind him and he sees all these books, and they're alchemical books, and he can sees pages on them, and then 20 years later he finds the same book with the same writing on it or the same figures, you know. And uh, so then the red one says, as you're superstitious and you're too German, you take literally your holy scriptures. Say, uh, 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 he says, otherwise you could not judge me so hard. Well, now this is really something, at least as a introverted intuitive, is kind of my opinion, is that when you're staring at the darkness and animating the darkness, I mean, the last thing you want is literalness, you know. I mean, and the figures you're meeting there. Let's just talk about what literalism is. I mean, basically, these images are completely real, but they're also not real as we know reality. But they're independent of us. That's your evidence that they are real. But are they, you know, if you see the Buddha coming down the road, you know, kill him. You know, I mean, there is no such thing as a literal Buddha, and there might be bodhisattvas, but when you see the Buddha, he's already achieved nirvana, so he's in the realm of no wind. You know, and really the early Buddhist sculptures would never show the Buddha. All they would show is a pillow with a little indentation on it where he's sitting, you know. And this was also true in very early Christianity, that they never would depict the Christ. They always use symbols. I mean, it was a little bit later, not in early Christianity, that you would see figures in the Christ. And that's also because he's not to be taken literally either. You know, I mean, it's this literal thing is really removing the personal experience, putting it out here, and it's not in me. It's somebody else's myth, but I am to be a slave to somebody else's myth. This one that's so literal, and that everybody says, "Oh, it really happened," you know. And by the way, if it didn't happen, my faith will disappear, you know. Well, that's not true of the personal experience, you know. I mean, like Young said, when he'd hear people like this talking, then they said he'd tell them about some sort of the visionary life, and they'd look at him and say, "Well, I haven't had those kind of experiences." And Young would have to go, "Well, I'm sorry, I have." You know, they're undeniable, you know. So anyway, that the red one thinks he's a little bit too literal, and an intellectual would tend to be either very abstractly literal, or you know, he's just everything's factual and logical, and there this sort of symbolic thinking that is all so lunar like and not solar like, is not really conducive to the to the um, to the ordering function, because it's not really ordered that much, you know. It's very ambiguous and light and dark at the same time, you know. So anyway, Young says, well, a hard judgment is the last thing I would want, but my nose does not play tricks on me. You know, he's an intuitive. You're evasive and elastic and don't want to reveal yourself. What are you hiding? Okay. Um, you know, when Diana splashes the water on Actaeon, you know, and turns him into a stag, you know, and she says, now you can tell people what I look like disrobed, if you can, you know. And then she splashes him with water and he turns into a stag and is killed by his own house. But the idea of the deity of the Great Mother is that she brought the world forth without a male parent, you know. And so they would say of her, no man has seen me unveiled. That's what that means. No man has seen me unveiled. It means that the Mother Earth brought forth life. Now, you could say that there was there seems to be an ordering function within it, you know. But I think really the ordering function is supposed to be the individuation process. I mean, the myth making of Homo sapiens, or Homo mythicus, you know, is this is what's really bringing meaning into the realm of world, where you have space, time, and causality, and then you add meaning, and then that's the fourth, you know, and that's the role of the individuation process. But anyway, he's saying that what are you hiding? And the red one seems to get redder, and his garments shine like glowing iron. And he says, I hide nothing from you, you true-hearted soul. I simply amuse myself with your weighty seriousness and your comic veracity. This is so rare in our time, especially in men who have understanding at their disposal, you know. Um, and let's see.
Hang on a second, Craig.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm thinking about Artemis and Actaeon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little stuck on this image of her saying, "No man has seen me unveiled." Um, that seems to be kind of a repudiation of consciousness in terms of the realm of nature.
Well, yes, it is. What it is consciousness that's not that has separated itself from the realm of nature and introduces logos and the spirit, the ordering thing. You know, eros has always been here, you know, but logos is so the logos that came out of of nature and now was this Archimedean point that can look down on itself, you know, and starts to separate and differentiate. And then that was how Jung said consciousness came into being, that the one became four functions. And through those four functions, differentiation occurred that now could bring a a very high form of consciousness that didn't exist before, you know. And so when Artemis or when the Great Mother says, "No man has seen me unveiled," she means that no man entered her bedchamber and lay with her when she brought forth all this life. You know, that's what it kind of means, you know. But so when Jung asks the Red One, "What are you hiding?" You know, it's some as I think that he represents a relationship as Pan does with the realm of nature, which is very is the realm of eros, and is which is somewhat related to the feeling function. You know, now I may be going too far with this, but it is it's just this aspect of, he says, "I'm not hiding anything." You know, I mean, and that was what Elijah told him too, is that you're deceiving yourself. You know, I'm not deceiving you. You deceive yourself. So, you know, another way, ego consciousness is trying to understand this, you know, and it thinks it's hiding these things are hiding, but consciousness just isn't, doesn't have the capacity to comprehend it, really. You know, there are no words or systems of thought that can contain boundless life. No man has seen me unveiled. You know, I mean, that's kind of the same concept, that it's incomprehensible, you know. And it was, anyway, it's just a trying to bring a little bit more to it, but, you know, maybe those two aren't exactly related. That's very possible. So anyway, yeah, I'm still over here. And let's see. He says, "I hide nothing from you, you true-hearted soul." And he says, and then Jung tells him that you know, he says that Jung's questions and discernment are very rare, and especially in men who have understanding at their disposal. Well, that's kind of a funny comment, because he's telling him that his comic veracity and weighty seriousness are a little amusing to him. What was it when? Well, we'll hear about it later when Philemon, the magician, you know, Jung goes to see Philemon, the magician. Jung finds out that magic, the magician, the magical arts, you don't understand them till you understand they can't be understood, you know, and then you can understand them. And it's a very interesting little dialogue that Philemon and Young have about. Young says, "Well, I don't understand what you're talking about." He says, "Okay, you've got it, you know." So anyway, but Young says, "I believe you cannot fully understand me. You apparently compared me with those whom you know, but I must say to you for the sake of truth." I'm going to finish this real quick here. There's a little bit more to go through, but I'll try to speed it up a little. "But I must say to you for the sake of truth that I really belong neither to this time or this place. Strange spell has banished me to this place and world time for years. Why and for what reason, I don't know." And then the red one says, "Well, you say the most astonishing things. I do not know. I did not know that. Who are you then?" And then Young, he's hiding things too. "Well, that's irrelevant who I am. I stand before you the way I am. Why I'm here, I don't know. But I do know that I must be here to justify myself in all conscience. I know who you are just as little as you know who I am, you know." And Young, and then the red one says, "This sounds strange. Are you something of a saint? You're not a philosopher, since you have no aptitude for scholarly language. You must be a saint. Your solemnity smells of fanaticism. You have an ethical air and a simplicity that smacks of stale bread and water." You know, that's a pretty good comment coming from the other side to ego. You know, that your solemnity smells of fanaticism, and you have an ethical air and a simplicity that smacks of stale bread and water. And and Young says, "I can say neither yes nor no. All I can say is that you speak as one who's trapped in the spirit of this time. And it seems to me that you lack the terms of comparison." And then he says that he must have attended the school of the pagans. He's a sophist, and that he's measuring the red one by the yardstick of the unconscious. And Young says that he's not a saint, but he still used the Christianity as a yardstick, and that he's again saying that the mysteries of Christianity, I think he's understood this from the last vision, and that's what's coming over here, because this certainly doesn't sound like Young. He's sort of this defender of the Christian faith, you know, but I think it's coming from the last vision, you know. And you know, he says, "I repeat, he whose heart has not been broken over the Lord Jesus Christ drags a pagan around in himself who holds him back from the best." Well, this is a little bit, I think, of inflation from the previous vision. And I think that's why the red one needs to come to him. And the reason he's wearing green garment, okay? The inflation that he got from Salome telling him that he and she are siblings, and that their mother was Mary and their father was Elijah, and he himself is the Christ, needs a little bit of coming down. It's too much inflation. So this is kind of a deflationary dream that's necessary, you know. And the red one glows again and says, "Same old tune again. What are you if not a Christian saint?" So you're a damn sophist. And he says, "You're a doctor of theology who examines Christianity from the outside and appreciates it historically, and not as personal experience." And anyway, Young and him have this little argument, and then they talk about that, well, what about the Jewish religion? You know, and then Young says that there's something lacking in the Jew in both his head and his heart. Well, I think it's exactly the opposite. When I'm around Jewish people, I think there's something lacking in me. And it's this sense of community and this sense of, you know, the Baal Shem Tov said that anyone who lived in the realm of the Baal Shem Tov always felt as if he belonged. And you really feel that, you know, too, you know, like it doesn't matter what your disability is or what you look like or how maybe unattractive you are, you can still be the Prime Minister of Israel, you know, and Golda Meir, Menachem Begin, you know. But anyway, there's that aspect, and the aspect that the most hated person in the village, the Jewish village, is still a very vital member of the Sabbath ceremony. You know, we need him here. You know, we need Gimple the Fool. He's got to be here. You know, and there was also an aspect, and for me, this was, you know, pretty important. Was this was written in 1913, and I think after the Holocaust, that Young wouldn't write this way. I mean, it's sort of a different. I mean, that was such a cathartic experience, and I don't think Europe. First of all, you know, the Jewish people were not allowed to have any trades or crafts, and yet the Europeans weren't allowed to get interest on money. So it ended up the only way that that the segregated Jewish population in Europe could make money were either as diamond merchants, pawnbrokers, or bankers, because the Christian could not charge another Christian interest on a loan, you know. So nobody would loan anybody money because they can make money on it over here. Why would I give you my money I'm not going to make any money on it, you know? And so what was really funny was that the Jewish population in the West, because all they could do is be bankers, where in the Eastern, in Europe, I mean, in the Slavic countries and in Russia, they could still be farmers and stuff, you know, the IQ went up dramatically. And so when they started giving out the Nobel Prize, you know, like 90% of the recipients were Jewish, you know, so their IQ went way up. But anyway, I was always, I majored in Judaism in college, you know, and I was a real student of Martin Buber and Hasidism. And of course I read Elie Wiesel and you know, one thing Abraham Joshua Heschel said, you know, that always was so moving to me was after the Holocaust. He says, I even hate to repeat it because it's so moving. He says about the horrible years, prayer may not save us, but it will make us worthy of being saved. You know, I just have found, you know, in that I think there's something lacking in the Christian heart and the Christian head. It's not the other way around, you know. And anyway, it all ends up that well, so try to finish this a little quicker so we can talk about it. Is the real punchline of this is that Young he is criticizing him for being so solemn and so serious, and he says only Christianity with its, this is the red one speaking, that he says, if you're no saint, I really don't see why you have to be so solemn. You wholly spoil the fun. What the devil is troubling you? Only Christianity with its mournful escape from the world can make people be so ponderous. And then Jung says, I think there are other things that bespeak of seriousness. And then, now this is the real punchline of the whole vision. He says, oh, I know, you mean life. I know this phrase. I too live, and I don't let my hair turn white over it. Life doesn't require any seriousness. On the contrary, it's better to dance through life. And we'll find out later that this is, the red one is the dancer. He says, I know how to dance. Jung says, if dancing only could do it, dancing goes with the mating season. You know, it's something to do with courting a girl, he says. I know that there are those who always are in heat and those who want to dance for the gods, some ridiculous, jubilant old men and women, another posture at antiquity, instead of honestly admitting their utter incapacity for religious expression. Well, what he's really saying is that they aren't theologians, you know. They're more involved in the personal experience of religion. And then now the red one says, here I doff my mask. Now I'm growing somewhat more serious since this concerns my own province. It is also conceivable that there is a third thing for which dancing could be the symbol. And now the red of the rider transforms into a flesh color. And Jung's green garments everywhere burst into leaf. So this is the redeeming thought, okay? That there's some kind of third thing for which dancing could be the symbol. This is, we gotta pay attention when the red, when the red of the red one becomes flesh colored, and Jung's green garment breaks into leaf, you know. And Jung says then, well, perhaps there is a joy before God that one could call dancing, but I haven't yet found this joy. I look out for things, I'm in the watchtower, that are yet to come. Things have come, but joy was not among them. Okay, here's the end of this whole vision. He looks at Jung and says, don't you recognize me, my brother? I am joy. So Jung says, I look out for things that are yet to come. Things come, but joy was not among them. Here it came. And then Jung, the red one, then disappears. And he says, could you be joy? I see you as if through a cloud. Your image fades. Let me take your hand, beloved. Where are you? Where are you? And he says, I am alone in the chamber of the tower. Rain pelts the window, cold stormy night outside, and a small flame flicks over my tabletop like a will o' the wisp. Joy? Was he joy? God help me, what shall become of this? You know, now we find out later the red one appears one more time, but he really does represent this dance. And he's saying what caused everybody to break into flesh-colored and you know, and have their leaves sprout was the image that dance can represent a third kind of joy, you know. And if you can just look at the dance from all over the world, you know, the you know, what is going on here? You know, what is this represent, and how does this turn our you know, flesh-colored our redness into flesh-colored? You know, it's the Japan, you know, and then of course there's the Native Americans. You know, this is, I think that was taken by Edward Curtis, by the way, who's a great course, there's Africa, which is a wonderful continent that celebrates the dance. And then there is Polynesia, and there is also, of course, Europe. You know, this is, well, that's kind of the end of the red one. Gary, did you have or Adam have an exercise for today or no?
Yeah, I think I have one.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to maybe do about 15 minutes of discussion and then go into it?
Sure.
Okay. Well, 15, 20 minutes, whatever. Does anybody have any questions or comments or, you know, about anything? It doesn't have to be about what we've talked about in this thing, but it's pretty powerful, I think. And, you know, it's kind of hard to get your head around it, other than that the end seems to be the whole point, you know, is Jung says, well, dance might have this third thing. Maybe it represents joy, but I've been waiting for it for a long time and it's never come. And
My sister says the purpose of the human being is to create particles of joy. I really love that image. You know, that's what the image of dancing is for me. It's just figuring out how to derive out of the world joy and then express it so that other people can pick up on that. We can share our particles of joy.
well, yeah, and compare it with the arts, with music, and with, you know, Tai Chi, with this whatever it is that movement is, you know, they're all it has where art represents somewhat of the eyes, and music represents time and hearing. What does dance represent? You know, it represents somewhat of the body and the rhythms of something. It's related to music, of course, you know. But Gary, what about some of your experiences in movement? Because you seem to be someone who, and Adam, I think don't you both do some movement exercises or?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, for me, I've got like a set of dances that I like to do. And I think but, you know, it's because, you know, that's my feeling function is limited. And to me, you know, it's a way to work on it, you know. And, you know, one of the reasons that I like doing some of the, you know, the dances as exercises in here is that the visualizations that are given with it, you know, along with the movement, you know, it feels like an active imagination where you're just totally embodying this, you know, where you are in completely, you know, a different place. So to me, it's like, you know, especially the ones that are kind of guided visions with the music and where you're just really focusing on, you know, these slow movements and the feel of the body. It's a really good active imagination practice.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, it's definitely something that you've seemed to discover and are also have almost independently realized was a very important part of you. And you know, one thing about what Tim was mentioning too is, and his sister was mentioning, is what is called Leela, you know, and this is Shiva, dancing the dance of the universe, you know, with the time in his hands, and he's dancing on this little young thing, you know, below, you know, the youth. But the object of the creation of the universe was there's an aspect of the play aspect, and the as if aspect, you know. But this one involves movement, you know, and like you know, they were saying even in some shrines of 200 or 300,000 years ago, they would find makeup, you know, to make the eyebrows or arch more, and you know, to put, and of course the skin, they'd find tattoos on it. I mean, there's an aspect of, and how about the bowerbird and the puppies, you know, and this kittens, and this aspect. There's an aspect of play that is so important, and the aspect of dance is really, again, like the little boy says that you know, are the dreams just in your head? He says, no, I'm in the dream. So you know, when you're in the dance, where are you? You know, I mean, it's an aspect of, you know, dance like nobody can see you or whatever. You know, is this aspect of losing yourself in the dance. You know, but it's a different. Let's say it's a visionary experience. So you know, the ego consciousness has created a vacuum, which is filled by something else taking over our body and moving it. Because the last thing we want to do is to have the ego coming in there, making us clumsy and awkward, you know. But anyway,
So in the chat, Jan is asking about the dialogue between Elijah and Salome in the Red Book. The piece is called Enantiodromia. She says, why was that the title? And she also put in the definition, the Wikipedia definition, which is helpful.
Okay, well, and enantiodromia means that the pendulum has swung so far in this direction that it now suddenly appears over here, you know. So the only way that you can get it to appear over here is you got to go all this way. You know, you got to go all in one direction. So I'm not exactly sure what events that they're referring to in Salome, and but I guess what it would mean. Jung wrote Enantiodromia on it. So what he's saying is that I think this is just, I'm off the top of my head, is what he's saying is he's the one that's went too far in this direction, and now the unconscious, the other side, is bringing him this side, so that his pendulum that swang all the old way over here has went so far over this way that without moving it came out here, you know. So it went so far right that it just appeared on the left, you know. So it's you know, to could somebody read the Wikipedia description so that I could? I don't know if I can find where that darn. See if I can get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I got it up now.
The principle introduced in the West by Jung in Psychological Types, he defines enantiodromia as the emergence of the unconscious opposite in the course of time. This characteristic phenomenon practically always occurs when an extreme one-sided tendency dominates conscious life. In time, an equally powerful counterposition is built up, which first inhibits the conscious performance and subsequently breaks through the conscious control.
That is definitely represented by the blindness of Salome being cured, I would think, is that she's blind because Jung is too one-sided, you know, and when he gives up his one-sidedness, then his eros can see now, and it's not subjugated but it's really is balancing something that's totally out of balance, you know. Go ahead, Marina.
I'm just thinking, you know, I'm having some associations as we're talking, and the image that keeps coming up to me, particularly towards the end with the dance and the talk of joy, reminds me of A Christmas Carol. You know, A Christmas Carol, and right at the end, Charles Dickens, and the guy has a complete transformation, and he's dancing in the street, and he's talking about joy, and even like the words that he was using, they're very similar to the words that were coming up then in the Black Book. And then I thought about how, with the active imaginations we've been doing, it kind of introduced us to the language of the Black Books. So I don't understand everything of what's going on, but there's a kind of sense of being immersed in the unconscious language. You know, I don't know.
Well, that's very, very good analogy. Don't you think that the idea is so unexpected? You know, it came up where Jung started to say that there's other things that bespeak of seriousness. And the red one says, I know what you're talking about, life. Well, you know, life is not that serious. That life is, I don't let my hair grow white over it. And then he mentions dance, and then Jung says, well, dance, yeah, okay. That has to do with either courting a girl or with people who don't really understand religious expressions. And then that third thing came up, and when Jung started to talk about joy and that he's looked for it and it's not come yet, and then suddenly the red one tells him he's not hiding anymore. Carlos, did you have something you wanted to say, or yeah, or not? You have to unmute.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Devil is what archetype
Mhm.
is the devil associated with?
Oh, which archetype is what associated with?
Yes, it's in the chat.
Oh, and see in the chat. Okay. All right.
I
Let's
can
see.
read it if you want.
Yeah, go ahead if you could, Adam. I'm having trouble looking.
Carlos had asked, he had one question concerning the devil. What archetype is the one that is in no contact with the unconscious that represents the devil?
Okay, this at least this is Edinger. Now it's not me, but Edward Edinger said that the devil currently is the personification of the archetype of ego consciousness, of a consciousness that has separated itself from its source, that is now has turning and turning in a widening gyre. The falcon can't hear the falconer. Okay, so that means that the falcon has left the guiding source, and it now thinks it's the entire universe. So it's become a god itself, you know. But the god is the devil, you know. I mean, go ahead.
Which is the weakness of consciousness, it seems to me, because the temptation is always there for the ego to say, I am God.
Well, yeah, the whole universe is me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is nothing outside of me. I'm in need to be in service to no one, you know. I mean, because everything is in my head, and if it's not in my head, it's you know, it's also sort of you know, all about bank balances and you know, it's a very well. Here, you know what Marie-Louise von Franz said is it's the revenge of the father archetype and the mother archetype. You know, and the father archetype is this understanding, which is supposed to be of the depths, and it mutates into rationalism. And the mother is supposed to be this you know, body and the earth, and she mutates into materialism. So now you've got rational materialism, and then those are the gods of ego consciousness. And what Ettinger says is that the personification of that realm, which is a closed loop of the ego, is the devil. You know, and also represents what is called the age of the Antichrist, which means the anti-self or the anti-center, the anti-source, the realm where ego consciousness now, its only meanings and definitions are found in science, logic, mathematics, finance, and banking, you know, and you could probably name a few other ones, you know. But as far as listening to the voice of the center, there is no center. That's superstition. It doesn't exist anymore. Well, then what, that really is the wasteland that T.S. Eliot writes about, this realm of dry stones, you know. Well, I think I'm going to turn it over to Gary and Adam, unless anybody else has any questions. Hi, Kevin. I'm sorry you weren't here earlier, but I was on the watchtower looking for you, you know, hoping that you would come. Just show that little image one more time. It's beautiful, you know. This was Jung, the green man on the watchtower. Now we are going to see Jung in the green too. This is at the end of the vision with the one who is Debar. Yeah, we'll see him at the end. Turn into green again. The green man leave. Anyway, Gary and Adam, it's all yours. I'll mute myself here.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so in the I guess in the effort for all of what we're talking about to have sort of an experiential aspect to it, the exercise that I thought that we could do today, those who are willing, is the following. So what I'm thinking is that we could imagine, you know, maybe each of us has a place inside of themselves that is not an easy place to go to. And Gary last week, I think, and maybe the week before, had an exercise where we got really big, and then we entered a cave. So a cave might be a good image, perhaps, for this place that we might have inside of us that we might find it's difficult to go to. That might not be the image that that works best for any one of us. So if there's another image, that's fine too. I happened to have a dream last night in which it seemed to be like kind of the highest point of a house, and there was like water coming out of it. So that's a very unconscious type of image that happened to come out of me. But I thought what we could do is maybe close our eyes and start to maybe enter into a frame of mind where it might be possible to get a little closer to that place. So what I would recommend anybody who wants to do this is with eyes closed, if that works for you. Just kind of start to feel my body, feel one's own body. Maybe become aware of where we are, where we're sitting, parts of our bodies that maybe we don't generally pay attention to. Maybe feel the heaviness of those parts, the weight of them. Feel, for example, if my hands are in my lap, feel the weight of my hands. Feel what part of myself, if any, is touching the ground. Feel the weight of that. Or what part of myself is being supported by a chair or a couch, wherever we may be. Just become aware in a very presential way of ourselves. Breathe. Just breathe. And as we're breathing, become aware of ourselves, even in a less physical way. Is there a part of myself that feels like it's empty or it's absent somehow? Is there a part of myself that maybe seems numb or separated? A place where maybe I haven't gone there for a long time, yet I know it's there. Something tells me that place is there, even though perhaps I've turned away from it. Now, if this image works for you, it could be having a torch, a flame in one's hand and walking into that dark spot. Now I'm just gonna leave us alone for about 6 or 7 minutes so we can each be there. And if it helps you to write what it is that you experience, or if you want to even move, because that feels like it would connect you somehow to that place, go ahead. And then after 6 or 7 minutes, I'll bring us back to our regular conscious, awake senses. Okay, I'm going to start bringing this back. So wherever it is that we've been in ourselves, that place which perhaps we don't often visit, let's start to say goodbye to whatever it is that we have been in the presence of while there. You can say goodbye to it. Saying goodbye without saying goodbye. Coming back into the land of the present. Coming back, if that means rising out of the depths, or maybe descending from the heights, coming back to where we are here again, feeling the presence of our bodies once more, breathing, feeling ourselves here together in this spot. And now I'm going to start my video, and everybody else who wants to is welcome to do that. And to the extent anybody wants to share about this experience, you're welcome to. No obligation. But we're here to listen, to talk.
Yeah,
To the extent we want to. Yep.
I can share where I was quite happily. It was kind of, now it might be something to do with my earphones, but I was kind of breathing deeply, and as I was breathing deeply I could hear wind, so I think I was somewhere here in my sinuses, somewhere up here. I thought I was going to be down there, but I wasn't. I was up here. And Black Madonna, that's what came to me, the Black Madonna. I mean, you know, I don't know much about her or it, but that's what came, yeah, Black Madonna.
It's sort of the unconscious mother, nature mother aspects, I think, the ones that haven't been lit by ego, you know. It's she represents a more earthy aspect of the Madonna, you know, not the white and blue Madonna, but it's the one that's more of the chthonic realms. So it's slightly less spiritual, and more is the mother of God of the lower worlds. You know, it's those aspects. Is that anybody else? Yeah, Tim or Gary or Adam.
Whoa. Carlos wrote in the text, I had an image. I was walking in a labyrinth. I feel trying to search the way to the center.
Oh, sorry, my dog keeps. Oh, that one is again. You know, actually, there is you're fine. I mean, let's say we're just finding a path ahead of us that wasn't there before. You know, I mean, it's the inner world has a path, and we're trying to get closer to to that. It's we'd have to have a little more details, but it's actually to have a vision of that doesn't really need any explanation, I don't think. You know, I mean, it doesn't need an explanation. You know, what about you, Tim? Did you have anything happen or?
I kept coming back to this idea of joy. I've spent a lot of time, I guess, looking for that place of sensual delight, you know, sensing being my inferior function and not at all supported by the greater culture. Part of my spiritual quest is just to be subsumed in the world of senses. So I feel like when I look out into the world, beauty is the first thing I see. And there's a kind of, I guess, spiritual discipline involved in finding that. But then it strikes me that it can also be an escape as well. So I just found myself kind of looking at those two sides of a delightful problem, I guess.
That was kind of what I had is just my the place I don't go to very much would be the body, you know. So I just, you know, asked the body, it's been so long, could you speak to me? And yeah, you know, it sort of represents a joy, but what it eventually says is I you know, that they seem to observe me silently, confused, living in chaos. And I said, well, I clothe you. And it says, yes, but you know, you have no sense of what you're clothing, you know, and then suddenly a dog bit me in the stomach, you know, and anyway, that was kind of interesting. One other thing happened too, but you know, as soon as Adam woke us up, and by the way, Adam, you're a master at this. I woke up, I couldn't remember it. Kevin or Gary, or do you have any comments?
Mine was pretty brief. I actually was back in a active imagination that I'd had the other week, only as a different character. And, you know, it was, and mostly it was just the sensation of, you know, kind of being a very primitive person kneeled on the ground.
Yeah, well, that's that was that the one with the horse sacrifice, or
Yeah, it was that one. And in this case, I was, you know, you know, because in that I was actually the woman, you know, but in this one I think I'm the you know, the warrior man or whatever that goes to talk to her.
I was reading about Rasmussen, and you know, he went from like Prince Edward Island all over to Baffin Bay or someplace in Alaska, and met a lot of shamans there. And he had one that he met that was he wanted to marry this girl, and their father wouldn't let him, so he stood outside their where they lived, and then as they came out, he shot everyone but the woman, so that he could have her. And then he got arrested, and he was taken to prison, and he said he died 10 times there, and he had to sacrifice 10 white horses each time so that he wouldn't die. And then all these witnesses came to testify against him, but they couldn't look him in the face, so that somehow no one would testify against him. But anyway, it was the sacrifice of the 10 white horses that saved him. Kevin, do you have a?
Yeah, not too much. Yeah, the horse sacrifice is also interesting, I feel. It's also the birth of ego, the birth of world. Yeah, for me, trying to do exercise, to to be honest, I don't have a lot of empty space in me. But at the same time, I also realized that I didn't want to go there because I ended up starting doing meditation. And for me, I'm not in a position I should be doing meditation because I am just now pretty much engaged in my extroversion, and I just want to milk it for
Yes.
all I can right now. So I didn't want to go there because I didn't want to go back to meditating a lot.
Well, how about you, Adam? Did you, of course, you were doing the meditation, but did you have anything? I mean, you seem to have a very interesting spiritual journey going on. That's not exactly pleasant, but I think it's going somewhere. I hope.
Yeah, we'll see. That's part of the fearful aspect of it. But yeah, I wrote down what I experienced during that, during the process. Sort of inspired by Carlos sharing about the labyrinth, makes me feel more comfortable sharing about this. I'm in the dark cave where I perceive a pale glowing green light. It is like bioluminescence, organic, but coming from a mineral source. I feel resentment is there, pulsating, but also a source of life. It is like the part of myself that refuses, or which I refuse, presence. Lost baby, misplaced, seeking its mother, but in a way that disgusts, like something rotten, something long dead, which has not totally died. I release you, I release you. I return from the cave.
Well, that's beautiful. I mean, there's some aspect that I mean, it's a painful mystery, but I think it is, if it can be confronted in a loving and accepting way, and directly as we can, that it's going to awaken a great healing energy within, you know, but it's just this resistance that is in the way, and the resistance probably has a legitimate reason to it too, because of just this possible of the depression it might cause might be too great, you know, or the whatever it causes. But usually depressions lead to a vacuum that has to be filled by something, and you come down to the rock of wisdom, you know. Well, you know, next time I thought I would like to introduce it sometime, just like either every other session or something, maybe the visions seminars of where Jung actually talks about somebody else's visions that are exactly like Red Book visions, but now he gives commentary on them. So I was thinking if we did maybe like either one a month or maybe one every other week of doing the vision seminar, we'll get to hear Jung's speaking of what the visionary experience is like, you know, and also give his commentary on it. So we're not just reading undecipherable visions. We'll have a little bit of commentary on it and a little bit of it just, I think we'll put some context around everything, you know. Now, Carlos, is your email, are you getting the emails right now? Okay, great. Well, I'm going to put by the way, one day I'd like you to show us your library. It's fabulous. That's a wonderful library you have. But, oh my God, yeah. I am listening to that right now on Audible. It just came out, The Masks of God.
Craig,
So,
can I just ask, are you kind of carrying on? Because Wednesday is Christmas Eve. Are you still having a dream?
oh, well, I'll talk with them on, maybe we can do it Monday and Tuesday.
Okay.
What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll do it. Again, that's the intuitive talking in me. I don't know where I am or what day it is or what month it is. So, yeah,
Well, actually, isn't isn't Christmas on Friday?
Friday.
So,
Oh, it is. No, you're right. I beg
Yeah,
your pardon.
okay.
Christmas
Yeah,
is
well,
Friday.
that's fine. We'll do whatever. You know, I'm a lot of these dreams have been so complex. It's kind of good to sleep on them because I've got a lot of ideas about them. But anyway, well, everyone have a wonderful Christmas. Feliz Navidad and namaste to everyone. The birth of light. You
Are
know.
you planning
So,
on meeting next Sunday?
well, yeah. I mean, I'll be here if nobody else is here, but that's fine. We don't have
Okay.
to. It'll be on YouTube if no one's here. So
Bye-bye,
anyway,
everybody.
well, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you all soon.
sounds good.
Okay.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Goodbye.